Peace and blessings, everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome to yet another edition of Royalty with Saran. Peace to everybody on Facebook. Greetings to everybody joining on Zoom. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is seemingly a short episode. I don't know that the topic of raw food should be a lengthy conversation, but we'll see how it goes. I'm relying on you guys to ask questions and participate in it. Now, in light of the fact that we're just about to start the good raw life tomorrow on Monday to Friday. It's a 5-day challenge of being 100% raw. And the group is ready. Everybody is amped up about it. So I thought it fitting to have a conversation on raw food, why it's so beneficial and why the need for us to reprogram our mind around food, especially about eating more raw foods. Okay, so welcome. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for joining on Zoom. I see everybody. I see Adrian. Hey, Adrian, what's up? So, raw foods, where do we begin? So, I think, like I said, I don't foresee this being a very lengthy conversation, but we will go with the flow. And if you have questions, of course, you know that your comments and your questions are always welcomed. Okay, so we begin with what is raw food. So in terms of what we're going to be discussing, raw foods would be foods that are in its most natural state. It's going to be something that has not been adulterated by heat or the cooking process. And so the gauge in terms of the temperature is anything that has been altered above 115 degrees Fahrenheit, that's considered cooked or adjusted in a way that is no longer considered raw. So, in terms of that, when you think about the temperature gauge, then you would have an understanding as to why persons who advocate for a raw food lifestyle, they tend to use a lot of dehydrators because you can gauge your dehydrator in a way so that you can keep the temperature below that mark. Okay, so that's like an overview as to what it is. In my estimation, I like to look at it as eating foods directly from the tree as much as possible, keeping the food as natural as possible. As we all know, once you heat it, it changes the chemical compound in the food. And so, with that in mind, I'm a huge advocate for raw food. And I'm going to go through some of the benefits. I'm also going to discuss some of the quote unquote darker side of eating raw food. Shouldn't even put it that way because you know. Anyhow, welcome everybody. So the first thing that I want to discuss is the fact that raw foods are very hydrating. They're very alkalizing. And so when I say hydrating, a lot of people tend to limit our understanding of keeping hydrated to consuming water. And we don't pay attention to the foods that we actually eat. In fact, if you've been on the plant power detox, you would see that I'm a, big fan of coconut water, a big fan of using fruits, using your raw juices and your smoothies and things like that to amount to the amount of liquids that you're expected to consume daily. And the reason for that, fruits have H3O2, whereas water is H2O2, H2O. The fruit is a complete, the water or the juices that we get from fruit is a complete fluid. It has everything that you pretty much need in terms of hydrating the body. So some of the things that we tend to think about right off the bat when we think about hydration from raw foods, of course, your cucumbers are going to be right at the top of the list. Your watermelons, your melons in general, even your tomatoes and things like that. They're just the very nature of the foods. You can tell that is very water porous. And once again, it has those necessary elements in the food itself that's going to hydrate you in a different way than water would. Okay, so if you had to choose between a water and a coconut water, I would definitely lean towards the coconut water, of course. The coconut water, and it's important for us to not just think of it in terms of I guess, the science of it. Let's think of the plants as an entire being. And when we think about coconuts and how it's grown, we see how high it is away from the ground oftentimes. And we also, if you've been exposed to coconut trees, then you know how deep into the earth those root systems go. And it's essentially pulling up all of the necessary energy, the necessary hydration from the earth in order to create what we consume inside of a nut. So, in and of itself, it's perfect. Whereas with water, there's a lot of tampering that has been done to it, different things added to it to purify it. When we think about coconut water, it's straight from source in more than one way, it's straight from source. And so we would notice that when we drink, when we consume things like coconut water, we feel energized. And that's that added element that we get from fruits and we get from raw foods that we don't necessarily oftentimes recognize with water in and of itself. Okay, so that's the first one. Raw foods are very hydrating. And then now let's discuss the fact that it's very alkaline. Now, like the examples that I've given, the cucumbers, the watermelon, your melons in general, and things like your coconut water, you're going to notice that on the pH level, these items are very alkaline. And so, for that reason, once you're going away from the acidic side, your body is going to be conditioned, or should I say, positioned in a better way to utilize the minerals and the nutrients from these items. Okay, of course, we know I think we're all familiar with the acidic food versus alkaline food. Wherever you're, oh, I'm sorry, I think I have one moment. Okay, so whether you believe or whether you lean towards a fully alkaline approach to your food, or you do a blend between alkaline and plant-based food, or whatever it is, we all know that alkaline ingredients in the body is always going to be helpful. It's been touted time and time again that, disease cannot thrive in alkaline environments. And so for that reason, we have to pay attention to making sure that we're deliberate about consuming things that are as alkaline as we can get it. And again, the coconut waters and things like that. And you would notice, in my estimation, we have done so much to food that food has become really difficult for us to decipher. In its simplest form, it's very, very easy. Pluck, eat, that type of way. But over time, we have done so much manipulation, so much tweak into it to make it this way, to change it into that form and that kind of thing for convenience a lot of times. But when we think about raw foods, we're thinking about it as simple, as back to basics as we can get it. Okay, so that's that. Of course, naturally, a huge plus in terms of eating raw foods would be the fact that the foods are very nutrient dense. Now, again, this speaks to the whole notion that I mentioned earlier. Once you heat food, it changes the chemical component. Yes, there are a few foods that once you heat it, the absorbable minerals or nutrients or elements of that food is, it's made in a way that we can readily absorb it. However, for the most part, most of our go-to foods in terms of the foods that we normally consume raw are just nutrient dense. Things like vitamin C, when we examine vitamin C and, coming out of the time that we have been in for the last however long, there's been a lot of push towards vitamin C. raw foods are gonna be optimal in terms of your vitamin C. Most times you would notice that vitamin C is very easily manipulated by heat. And when I say manipulated, I don't mean in a positive way. A lot of it is compromised once we increase the heat on it and things like that. So things like broccoli, for example, we hear, oh, broccoli is really good in vitamin C, very high in vitamin C. However, once you would have boiled it, and especially boiling it to the way most of us prepare broccoli, where it's kind of overcooked, not kind of, it is overcooked. It reduces the vitamin C component in that by 60%. And so things like vitamin C or vitamins in general, when you hit the food raw, it's going to give you a very unique advantage. So that's one of the reasons why, of course, we all can relate to the fact that, raw foods are just very, very nutrient dense. You're not compromising the chemical makeup of the food itself. And the truth is, I mean, we have toyed and we have tampered and we have done a lot with food. We've merged, we've grafted, we've genetically modified. But the truth is, we have yet to improve on what nature gifted us. And so once you're going back to the essence of nature and eating natural foods, you're just going to see an improvement in your overall well being as a result of that. And so another one is that for some reason my connection is flashing. I'm not sure why, but we'll keep going. Raw foods are also very high in fiber. Now, when we discuss the word fiber, I think naturally for me, if you get for the persons on Zoom, y'all already know constipation is something that I always segue into because it's something that needs discussion time and time again for us to get the message. The notion that you're going to eat food for the entire day, you're having breakfast, you're having lunch, you're having dinner, and then the next day you're still not having a bowel movement, and the next day you're still not, there's nothing normal about that. And it's very easy to hear people say, oh, I don't go often. You don't go often because there's an issue. And for us to accept an issue just so blatantly, like, oh, okay, it's just what it is, can definitely be something to our detriment. So, fiber rich foods right off the bat, when persons come to me and they have constipation issues. Yes, I'm a herbalist, so I do a lot of herbal work in terms of cleaning your colon system and things like that. However, my first go to is always going to be increasing fibrous food in the diet. And so, while on a raw food diet or a raw food cleanse, you're going to notice that you're ingesting a lot more fiber. So, you should naturally go without assistance and things like that. So, the fiber, of course, multitude of benefits, but one of the key results of having fiber rich diet would be your bowels moving very freely. I can't stress enough, my Zoomers, y'all already know, this thing about normalizing holding on to waste is something that's very, very dangerous. And we have done so time and time again. And I just want us to know that there's nothing normal about it. And if you are skipping days on end, or if you're not moving your bowels every day, once or twice a day, then there is a serious issue. Okay, so that's of course one of the perks again, the fiber richness of raw foods. Um, Let me see what else I wanna. Okay, let's talk about the NCDs, which are your non-communicable diseases or your lifestyle diseases. What you will naturally notice as a result of leaning towards raw foods, you're going to notice that your likelihood of suffering from these NCDs is significantly diminished. Hypertension, diabetes, yes, diabetes. And I know a lot of times there's this push that, oh, you can't do fruit, you can't do salads, you can't do all these things because of a diabetic predisposition. My training, my experience has been very, very different to that. I've seen persons being able to control their blood sugars being almost 100% raw and eating fruits, but eliminating the other things that I think are natural triggers that we normally don't discuss. You know, your breads, your pastas, and things like that. I think too often we think of sugar just as what tastes sweet, you know, and so we push back against fruit, we push back against things like that. Meanwhile, nobody's telling you, hey, 6 slices of bread in a day is just not what you should be doing with a diabetic predisposition or diabetes in general. And so because of that, I will be one of the strong advocates that raw food, it definitely decreases your likelihood of suffering from those NCDs. Hypertension is something that is wreaking havoc pretty much in all of our communities, whether it's in the US or in the Caribbean. We are suffering daily. We are paying with our bodies for hypertension, especially, and diabetes is right behind that. And switching to a more raw food lifestyle, you would notice a dramatic improvement on that. And so, you know, I'm always going to be a big fan for that. And another thing, parasites. Now, some of you will know that talking about parasitic conditions in the body, again, is something that I enjoy discussing because too often we suffer in silence, and too often we have normalized certain conditions that are just not healthy, and our bodies have over time been telling us, hey, you need to do something, hey, you need to do something. But because we're not familiar with the symptoms, we often just overlook it and think, you know, it's business as usual, or that's just how your body is now functioning. So parasitic conditions are going to be improved. Y'all know I'm plant-based, but I'm also somebody who is a realist. I've had my experience with parasites. And so for that reason, I'm not one of the vegans who say, oh, you have worms because of this or because you eat meat and that type of thing. Granted, there's a huge argument to be made with the fact that the more meats and the more gluey consistency foods that you consume, you're going to have an overload. However, with a plant-based life as well, there is a likelihood that you will have parasites. I just say, you know, what is the downside of assuming that you have it? There's really none. So I tend to tell people, you know, do whatever cleansing work, do the healing work on your body as if you have parasites, because there's really not a down to it. And so, yes, so you're going to notice a reduction in parasitic condition triggers in your body. And sometimes having parasites in the body is not necessarily just feeling it in your colon, when in fact we can, because we know our last discussion on parasite in the body, we know we get the anal itching. There are different ways in which we can indicate that. For some children, it's bedwetting and things like that, grinding of your teeth, and you know, there's a whole host of different things that come with that. But what you will notice if you do have parasites, they're not fancy about raw foods. That's not what they want. That's not what comforts them. That's not what grows them. They don't multiply well in those environments. And so you will notice a definite improvement where that is concerned. And as a result of that, oftentimes you will see an additional glow to your skin. The skin will be beaming, if we want to put it that way, but you will definitely see an improvement on the skin. And it's very important for us to link the ties between parasites and the skin conditions that we present. There is an argument, a justifiable argument, if you ask me, that eczema, psoriasis, some persons argue that those are actually parasitic conditions in the body, parasitic conditions, and that's the result of it. Why I would actually entertain that is the fact that every time you treat eczema with parasitic herbs, there's a major, major improvement. So again, I will go back to the fact that there's really not a downside to acting as if you do have parasites. There's not a downside to that. Um, the sixth one, well, number seven that I want to discuss is the fact that with a raw food lifestyle or eating more raw foods, you're going to notice that you automatically develop more self discipline, more self control. There's nobody walking around here smelling foods that you grew up on, being bombarded by things that are cooked that you used to love. And you're making a conscious decision to eat whole foods, to eat raw foods only, and you wouldn't have developed your disciplinary muscle. And so once you develop that, I oftentimes tell people that if you can master what you put in your mouth, you will notice that you're able to master other things very easily. It's discipline, and that's something that we always think that, oh, I'm not cut out for that. I'm not cut out for that. But yet we're very quick with our children. We're very this way. We're very do like I say, but we can make small adjustments either. And it's not because no need to be okay. So and it's not because you're unable to sustain yourself on raw foods. It's because you're not willing oftentimes to explore a certain level of discipline or a certain level of self-control. So I say, if you're able to master this, you will notice how it feeds into other aspects of your life. For me, high frequency food for high frequency people. Y'all have heard me say that time and time again. Live foods for live people. And that's exactly what it is with raw foods. It's high frequency foods. And for those in the Caribbean, we often sleep on what we have. Be you not discouraged in terms of the fruits that we have access to. It's very easy for us to get caught up in the buying an apple, buying apples in the supermarket, buying your pears, buying your grapes, buying your berries. All good, all good. I'm a fan of all. However, when you go outside and you pass your neighbor with the soursop on the tree, you pass the guavas on the tree, there's not no play nutrient exposure you're getting with those fruits. They're very, very high frequency. And again, going back to the whole concept of the coconut tree, when the trees have large root systems and it's going down into the earth and being a master at extracting from the earth exactly what it needs to bring forth fruits, is not no play something, is not no play thing. Okay, so let's not sleep on our mango season coming up. I actually got $15 mango yesterday and it's nearly done. I had a good time. But what you will notice, high frequency. It's just in and of itself high frequency, and you feel more alive having consumed that. I can guarantee you that if you're to be an honest judge with your own body and start your day with mangoes, start your days with watermelon, fruits that are just energetic, and then next day start your day how you normally did before. Start it with your bread and your egg and your whatever, your hash brown and things like that. The frequency level that you're going to feel is going to be hugely, hugely different. It's just not the same. There's no way you can compare it. Yes, for some persons, eating raw foods just right off of the bat, if you're accustomed to a particular thing, it takes a while to adjust. But once you really tune into your body, and especially from a spiritual point of view, you'll just see you feel so much better. You feel so much clearer. your mental capacity is just expanded because you're not eating foods that bog you down, so that's one of the major, I mean, for me, that tops everything. You just feel more in tune with your divine self. You feel more powerful, you feel more invigorated, you more energized. And y'all know wellness is my thing. Yes, it transfers into health, what I do, but wellness is my thing because wellness is your state of being, not the state of your body, as what health is. Health is the state of your body. What I do is the state of your being because we need to be good. We need to be feeling alive, feeling rejuvenated every day. And that's for me the biggest thing, the biggest advantage that we get by eating more raw foods. Um, okay, so we did those, and then of course a natural consequence of being more deliberate with eating raw foods would be it naturally eliminates a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff out of your diet. It eliminates everything that's unhealthy. So there's no, you understand, there's no Pringles, there's no Oreos, there's nothing like that to even contend with. There's no MSG, there's no artificial sweeteners, there's no refined sugars, there's nothing like that. All of the things that we have known from the beginning of time, that's really, really bad for the body. All of that is automatically eliminated. So you don't have to wonder, okay, this good for me, that good for me, nature made it for you. It has to be good. Yes, there are different things that we consider, we've done some damage to our bodies over time. And so sometimes you will notice that you might have a pre-existing condition that would cause you to even shy away from some natural foods depending on what's taking place in the body. However, you're just going to notice off the bat you're not exposed to unhealthy stuff. As a result of that, now this could either be an upside or a downside depending on who you are. But for me, I'm gonna put it as a plus because you're not exposing yourself to unhealthy foods. Being able to manage your weight is going to be something that's very natural with it. Okay, for some persons, we dread the thought of losing weight. We really do. And for our Caribbean people, and I'm talking specifically to Zoomers, we have a serious hang up with weight. And it's not in the typical, well, I should say it's perhaps not in the American approach, even though, certain circles in America, they share the same view. But our attachment to weight is something really major here in the Caribbean. Okay, let me see some comments coming in. Okay, so I'm seeing a comment coming in, I guess, from Facebook, saying that when you eat fruits in the morning, it upsets your stomach. That's very indicative of issues with the digestive system to begin with. And that's something it's not unusual. And for most persons who have particular conditions such as IBS and diverticulosis and issues of the digestive system, you'll notice that even though raw foods, you eating watermelon is digested in 8 minutes? Your breads and things like that, you're looking at hours working to break that down. But because we have, normalized that situation where you're accustomed to just working on breaking down your food, some persons notice an irritation. However, I would definitely recommend that you stick with it, Shamara. I would say this is what I would recommend that you do. Well, you're doing the detox now, so you pretty much know what I recommend. I recommend that you start with your warmer your warmer drinks in the morning. So I'm talking about your warm lemon water. I'm also talking about the rise and shine tea that you would have gotten in your box. So you start warming up your system, and then you move into your more room temperature or chilled fruits afterwards. So, Shamara, we need to talk. We need to talk. This is definitely a conversation to be had because I would like to get more information to you. If you can text it on Facebook, I would be happy to see what type of fruits have you noticed cause an irritation. And another thing that we need to bear in mind too, yes, we talk about fruits and we all assume that all fruits are fruits. If you do have digestive issues, separating your foods properly is going to be a key way of also avoiding irritation or upset stomach and things like that. And when I say separating your fruits, we consider all fruits fruits, but in fact, they're berries, they're melons, and then they're fruits. So it's three categories. They all digest at different rates. So if you have this issue where you get upset stomach by eating fruit, then considering not combining all of your fruits together might present, improvement almost immediately. So you're putting all your berries together, your blueberries, your raspberries, your strawberries, all your berries together, and you're having them by themselves, or you're doing your melons together, which would be your watermelon, your cantaloupe, your honeydew, all of that. You're putting those together. And then you're doing all of your hard fruits together. And even with the hard fruits, there are some that you could actually pull out and tweak. So I would like to speak with you a little bit more to see what your triggers might have been in the past. That's something we definitely WhatsApp call for that. Okay, but I hope that helped. Just know for some persons, especially if you have a history of digestive issues, for persons who would have noticed that they get upset stomach, they get an acid reflux and things like that. You may, once you start out, notice that digesting certain things causes that reaction. But I would definitely tell you stick with it because there's going to be a threshold that you get over, and then you're going to notice an immediate improvement. Okay, are there any other questions, comments? Zoomers, Facebookers? No? Okay, so let's go on to, like I said, it's going to be a short one today, and I mean it. I don't think there's a lot to discuss in terms of raw food. The downside, I guess you can argue that it is a downside. No, it's not specific to raw food or persons who eat more raw foods in general. Now, for me, a lot of people say, "Oh, why don't you go out to eat and all that kind of stuff?" And I'm like, I'm very selective as to where I go to eat. I love eating from plant-based places. I don't have to wonder and ponder what's going on in the kitchen if they're just cooking plant-based foods. However, when you venture out and people, oh, high-end restaurants and things like that, I have people who work in the food industry, and what we oftentimes imagine takes place in the kitchens of high-end restaurants sometimes very far from the truth. And so for that reason, when you go as a vegan, they will have a whole host of vegetarian options. But as somebody who's strictly plant-based, they're often kind of scratching their heads trying to figure out, okay, what to create for you. And right off the bat, you're going to be offered salad. Now, for me, I love a mean salad, but I like a decked out salad. I like what I like in salads. I don't like the boring tomato, cucumber, lettuce type salads. Um, and so I'm often hesitant because there's a lot of handling of food. Um, let's just say that heat buffers a lot of that unsanitary situation that takes place in kitchen. And so for me, just right off the bat, where you're having just a salad, sometimes you would notice that you have this, kind of response once you get home, because if you touch this and then you touch the salad, there's nothing coming down hot behind to kill anything that's supposed to be killed. And so because I've experienced that in the past, and you just know it's not what we often think. It's not a glamorized situation. Oftentimes, your salads are handled by hand, and if that person isn't very, very conscious as to what they touched before and what they touch, yeah, you'll be stuck wondering what you did wrong. And so, because that has happened to me in the past, I'm very mindful about eating from plant-based places, because there's a less likelihood that you're going to be exposed to any foreign thing that's not supposed to be on your salad, if you get my point. And so the downside would be you have to be sanitary. You have to be mindful as to how you're handling things, how you handle your utensils. You can't be going from, okay, you're cutting up, you have your fish over here, and then you're doing your salad over here, not being mindful as to cleaning your hands and making sure that you're not transferring and things like that. If you're not conscious about it, you can run yourself in some serious problem doing raw food, because again, there's nothing coming down behind it, to kill whatever isn't supposed to be in your system, because it's more room temperature and chilled in terms of your salads and things like that. Now, and so that's just one of the things that I'm just like, nah. No, no, no. I try to avoid that because I've paid with my body before, and I just know that it's not just the ingredients of the salad that I had a reaction to. More than likely, it's the handling of the food that was not, the best. And so I just want to touch on the fact that when we think about raw foods, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be um, unheated, or that type of thing. Again, remember the threshold. Yes, that cross contamination will get you every time. That's true, Tamara. And man, I have paid, and so I've learned that I it's sometimes best to stay in your lane, stay in your plant-based places, or if you do go out, try an option that is hot, that they have for vegans. It just so happens that not a lot of other restaurants offer those options. So I stay my little self at home. Okay. But I do support the plant-based restaurants, don't get me wrong. Um, Now going back to the heating of certain things. Now, you might think, oh, you can't snack as a because some people are just addicted to snacking. That's something that we need to tune into, because that snacking mentality, that constant need for just eating, not because you're hungry, just because you want to chop down on something. That's something that we need to go to the root of those issues. And it's usually an emotional thing that we're just not willing to address. So before we just adjust to a life of just constant snacking, we may want to pay attention to the triggers of the desire to snack. But anyhow, for those who really enjoy snacking, there are different things that you can do. Again, using a dehydrator is going to be so, so, so helpful. It makes a lot. Um, it makes the whole concept of eating raw food a whole lot easier. So there are different things that you could do. You could do like kale. You could do your kale chips. Hi, Bouzian. Your kale chips. Now, this will be, of course, you're keeping the temperature below 115. In fact, on chips, you could probably do 95 degrees. And you're going to leave it in there for a while, of course. It's not something that's instantly done because it's very low heat. But they have the fruit roll-ups that you could enjoy for those who are familiar with that that thing that we weren't supposed to be eating from back then. But the fruit roll-ups, there are different ways that you can see, there are different recipes that you can see online where you're using your strawberries and things like that, strawberries, date, and you're pretty much making your own fruit roll-up. And you're doing so again at low temperature. So those snacks can be mimicked very easily using your dehydrator. And for those who are using the stove because you don't have a dehydrator, keep your temperature really, really low. Let's say you want to do, for those in Antigua, you may want to do grated green papaya and do a low heat stir fry of it. When I say stir fry, I'm not necessarily talking about the oils, but you can heat you can steam your vegetables and do so low enough where it's still considered raw. So your grated green papaya, your let's say you're doing your Swiss chard, your mustard greens, your callaloo even, just ensuring that if you have a really high fire stove, then you move your skillet or move your pot from off of it so that you maintain a very, very low temperature. Now, when you do things like that, it's supposed to have a crunch, it's supposed to have a bite. I advise that if the bite or the crunch is not something that you enjoy, that you dice things up really, really small. Take your time and put it, there's so many kitchen gadgets right now that assist with that whole process. But if not, just take the time and chop your vegetables, chop your greens really, really small. Another thing that's very helpful also is using your lemon juice. Using your lemon juice to help tenderize your veggies. Things like your kales and stuff, they're very dense. If you put your lemon juice on it, it helps to cook it down and makes it a whole lot more palatable to get down. Okay, so that extends to your Swiss chard and all of that type of thing as well. All right. So yes, you can steam. Again, it's making sure that it's not high heat. Okay. So what questions do you guys have? Any as we begin tomorrow on our raw food challenge? I want to encourage everybody, and not just the persons who are doing the challenge. I want to encourage us in general to be deliberate. Now, I'm balanced. When you think about life in balance, you know that we're just not supposed to be eating a whole bunch of food daily, just morning, noon, and night. We never take a downtime. We embrace the things from our past that have gotten us stuck in a situation that's less desirable in terms of how our grandparents ate and things like that. We do that type of thing, but one thing that they did for sure that we no longer do, they fasted. They cleaned their bodies using herbs on the weekend. They were always utilizing herbal laxatives and things like that. Now we just keep it going. It's a constant loading up and there's really no downtime. And so giving your body more raw foods gives your body a break from the digestion. People bear in mind that most times you'll see the plant-based people that who are really eating live foods and things like that, you will notice that they always have energy. They can go to sleep, they can get very little sleep, and they can function the next day because the energy that we use up every day, the majority of it is used to digest foods. And so giving yourself a break from digesting the breads, the heavy meats, and all that type of thing, it allows your body to use that energy for other things. We're able to digest our foods quicker when we have more raw foods. Meat takes forever in your body breaking down, breaking down, breaking down. And so even if you're not desirous of going plant-based, but you're just interested in improving your wellness altogether, then making sure that your plate, one meal can be half of the plate raw foods. Make your salads interesting. Get with the program. Utilize your cilantros, all the different tastes that, sometimes we only eat certain things when we go out to eat at a fancy restaurant or whatever. And then we don't really know what it is. What's arugula? Get familiar with all your different greens. Don't just stick to the one. By the way, just for the record, the iceberg lettuce thing, we're not really doing that in 2022. Okay, unless you're using it to do like a raw burger, I really don't see why we should be doing that. But get into your greens, get to know it, because they're all so different, and the flavors are just so complex and different. You know, bite your cilantro, you feel that sting. Using your arugulas and things like that. It's just, the flavors are really, really enjoyable. And so this whole lettuce, tomato, cucumber, get a little bit more creative with your food. Honor yourself by, you know, going to the supermarket and making mindful choices. Okay, today I'm going to use some parsley in my salad. I'm going to use cilantro. I'm going to try some arugula. I'm going to, get creative so that we can enjoy the experience a whole lot more. Then another thing that we have to think about when you're going raw, your smoothies, your raw juices, those are going to be helpful tools. It's 100% raw, you know, and it's a way in which you can just not be fussing as to what to cook. Enjoy your smoothies, come up with recipes that you truly, truly love, and you can stick with it, and then you can mix it up. But do make sure that it's something that you're enjoying. It shouldn't be, oh gosh, I'm just doing this, but I can barely stomach it. I say everything that you're doing, no, our motivation for eating should not be because of taste, because of pleasurable desires. It should really be because you know it's time to nourish your body, to give your body the energy it needs. Same way you pull up at the gas station. You know why you're going there. You're going there for gas to get to point B. And that's the same way we need to look at food. But because we've been so tainted in terms of choosing foods, we just choose it for pleasure, then I would definitely say take time. Your raw juices should be enjoyable. It shouldn't be the, oh gosh, you add your apples for sweetness, add what is necessary so that you can enjoy the experience. So that makes it a whole lot easier. Your smoothies, again, of course, those are going to be heavier, so it's going to be a lot more filling. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Let me see what Zoom's saying. Yeah, cross contamination and anything else? Anybody has anything to share? Yeah. No questions, no comments. So next thing I'm not sure where to go. Like I said, it was going to be short. So this is our handbook for the raw food challenge for those who are doing that. Again, this is 5 days that we're very deliberate about using raw foods. We're going to be doing our raw juices. We're going to be doing our smoothies. We're going to be doing our salads for those who are eating food. Then there's another side to it, which would be a fully liquid part of it, where you're doing a large amount of raw juices. So there will be your coconut water, there will be your green alkaline juice, there will be your sunshine ones. Okay, what about your fruits, seeds, nuts in the salads? Absolutely. Yes. And I forgot to touch on your seeds and your legumes. Sprouts are going to be very, very, very helpful. I know for a lot of people, we have been obsessed unnecessarily. So we'll go, oh, where do you get your protein? Where do you get your protein? That's always a question. And then, sometimes I push back by asking, well, can you tell me what a protein is? And a lot of times we realize that we're just expressing something that we really haven't grasped the concept of what a protein is. And something protein deficiency is not something that's very common anywhere. But can you pinpoint persons who are deficient in iron, deficient in magnesium all the time? All the time, and yet we're just fixated whenever we hear somebody is plant-based, we just, oh, where do you get your protein? That's a non-issue to me. However, if you are, if that's something that you're very concerned about, your sprouted lentils, your sprouted seeds are going to be very helpful for that. And so you can incorporate your sprouts in your salads. I definitely advocate for that. Yeah, what was the question? Your seeds, your fruits. Yes, I would. Now, for some persons, again, separating your foods are going to be vital if you have especially a predisposition in terms of digestive function. So like was mentioned by Shamara, she has issues digesting fruits early in the morning. For somebody like her, perhaps she would want to take her time with introducing. Have you spoken about fruits? Yeah, I did. Take your time in terms of incorporating a lot of fruits into your salads. I would say if you're starting out, you could try some cranberries, you can try some raisins and see how that go. And then, you slowly gauge your body, gauge to see exactly how you respond to it. Okay. Going back to the challenge, yes, for those who are doing the liquid challenge, no, it's not no, okay, I'm just, you're just not consuming anything. It's 32 ounces of green alkaline juice, 32 ounces of their sunshine boost, 32 ounces of sea moss, and people these are anyhow. 16 ounces of coconut water, 8 ounces of your liver booster, 16 ounces of water, your herbal tea, your herbal nighttime tea, and your herbal morning tea, as well as your supplements. So that's kind of the thing. It's not a challenge. The liquid part of it is not a challenge where you'll have just 2 cups of juice and that's it. It's deliberate about infusing your body with a lot of live enzymes. And for those who are preparing to do it as of tomorrow, please pay attention to your oh, what's going on with Zoom? What is that? Please pay attention to the whiteness of your eyes, the condition of your skin. That's going to be a telltale sign. Right off the bat, you're going to notice that your eyes get clearer in terms of your vision as well, and also, the actual look of the eye. Okay, so you're gonna see that whiteness come to the fore again, as if you're a baby again. That's one of the things that I mean, when you think about the human body and how we respond to natural foods, it's just, it's very telltale that we should not be eating the things that we have conditioned ourselves to love. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'm not sure where to go in terms of going over your seeds that you can definitely add to your stuff. Your sunflower seeds are going to be good. Your chia seeds, of course, you can do your chia puddings and things like that. Um, Alternative milks. Okay, so I'll touch on the milk as well. Now, for those on the raw food challenge and for those who are thinking about doing a challenge, on their own, gonna be somebody who's gonna be a proponent of coconut milk. Why? Because it's everything on the market in terms of your almond milk and your cashew milk and all your different nut milks. Not everybody created equal, you know. There's some on there that is just, in my opinion, very, very unnecessary ingredients. And so I oftentimes just encourage people, get a coconut and get your water, get a blender, and take your time and make your coconut milk. You strain it and voila, it's right there. You know exactly what's in it, and you don't have to bother about guam and all the other things that are truly, truly unnecessary, especially for the purpose of this cleanse. 5 days, you can definitely make the sacrifice. It's not something that you can store in bulk, but if you're using it for your smoothies, you can definitely freeze your coconut milk, put it in whatever containers, or you might choose to put it in an ice tray, make a whole batch, put it in your ice tray, and so you can just add it to your smoothies on the go without having to make the milk every day. Okay. Let me see the other part of the question. What brands of milk do I recommend? um, like I say, let's try to go as close to Mother Nature as possible. Alternatives in milk and smoothies versus water. Now, that's a good question. Um, Coconut water is excellent for making your smoothies. I'm kind of biased because I love coconut water so much. I tend not to ever want to use it to do anything else apart from drinking it by itself. So you'll always find me, my coconut water is something that I cherish, cherish, cherish. So I always have that by itself. It's very energizing, full of your electrolytes and things like that. And but I have to admit, if you have access to it and you're not obsessed with it like I am, using your coconut water in your smoothies are going to be wonderful. It improves the taste, and it's something it doesn't overpower, so you're gonna enjoy what it tastes like, what it does in terms of mixing with your fruits and your greens. How do I what do I feel about oat milk? Now, here's the thing, right? In the plant-based thing, I've noticed a whole lot of reliance on oat flours and oat milk and that type of thing. Oats, in my experience, and I'm just going off of my experience, using a lot of oats or using oats back to back, you'll notice you start doing that. You'll notice that there's a buildup of mucus around the throat, especially. You'll notice you just breathe different. And so while I'm not against oat milk, it's not something that oh, yeah, let's definitely do oat milk. It's one of those things that, also, if you're looking at trimming down, you're looking at getting leaner, losing unnecessary weight, and things like that, then I would definitely navigate you somewhere else. It's one of those things that can be used, in my experience, to bulk you up, you know, if used consistently time and time again. So if I had to choose between oat milk and coconut milk, I would definitely lean on the coconut milk. And again, when I say coconut milk, I'm not talking about the canned coconut milks. I'm not talking about necessarily the ones that come in the supermarket either. But those of us in the Caribbean, and for the most part in the US as well, all the international stores always have a steady supply of dry coconut. Get your coconut, crack it open, take your time, take the dry meat out. You add your water. For some persons, they enjoy a little bit of sweetness to it, so you can add your dates. You blend it up. You strain it with a nut bag, or you strain it with something, that a small sieve, and yeah, you get your coconut milk, and you don't have to question what's in it. And once we're able to have the knowledge as to what's in our foods, I think we're just going to be better for it. Yes, there's a few on the market that are very conscious about offering truly minimal amount of ingredients, but you know, I'm an advocate for us doing it ourselves because that's something that, again, because it can be frozen, it's not something that you have to prepare every day. Okay, let me see the other part of the question. What did I do? Epicurean sells a coconut. Would you suggest? Um, Epicurean sells a coconut. Would you suggest using that? Well, I guess you're talking about the coconut water. I actually like that coconut water, if I'm to be very, very honest. Um, I have a very sensitive palate, and so for me, all of the other coconut waters that I've ever tasted, whether in the US or whether in Antigua, it always tastes like coconut water that's going rancid to me. Whereas other people will enjoy, the other brands of coconut water, that's the only one, the Rooster, I think is the one you're talking about. That's the only one that I've had that I haven't had, you know, reaction to. So yes, if that's what you have access to, I would advocate for Rooster. I actually do enjoy that brand. Okay, for anything else, if you can't get Rooster, my recommendation, check the guys on the street. Get your coconut in the shell, have them open it for you, drink your coconut water, then tell them open it and you get your meat. So it's a win-win all the way around. But yes, I do. I know that brand and I actually do like it. And that's the only coconut water that I've actually ever enjoyed outside of the fresh ones. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'm making sure that I covered everything in here. Um, I had a question. Okay. Using your fruits and your nut butters. Um, in terms of the nut butter, I would just say tread very lightly on your nut butters, whether it's the cashew butter, it doesn't matter what type it is. Just be very careful as to the quantity. We can sometimes eliminate and then we get fixated on something else because of our attachment to previous stuff. With the nut butters, I would say small quantities, small quantities with that. Your chia seeds, your sesame seeds, your pumpkin seeds, things like that. Go for it. Add it to your smoothies, add it to your salads. Enjoy the different taste of different things that we normally don't really consume. Okay, any other questions? If not, I think we've come to the end of today's chapter. Can we snack on fruits just in case? Let me see. Can we snack on fruits just in case we become hungry? Oh, yes, definitely. Yes. You can definitely get busy on your fruits. Go for it. Go for it. All right. And in between your dinner as well, that's fine as well. Okay, fruits are, if I had to choose, I would choose fruits over vegetables any day. All right. Any other question? Can we snack on fruits? Like I said, Nikki, go for it. Go for it. Go for it. And for those who are doing the raw, please remember that there's a guide in your booklet. However, you're not expected to just follow this to the letter and be miserable. You're expected to enjoy your experience, make it work for you. If it says one salad while you're doing the stuff, you're hungry again, you want two salads, go for it. There's no restriction where that is concerned. In fact, I would definitely advocate that you increase the volume of your salads that you consume. And of course, if you're doing your for those who are here, soursop are in season, watermelons are on the market, mangoes are in season. Please, please, please don't line up in the supermarkets for strawberries when those things are on the street cheap. you know, bang for your buck in terms of nutrition. Nobody's growing a soursop tree using pesticides. Nobody growing mango trees using pesticides. Are they growing apples that way? Yes. Okay. So with that in mind, if there are no other questions, I think this is all we have. That's all we have today. That's all she wrote. Um, Anything else? Anything else? Brian, are we good? Um, well, with that in mind, no other questions. I can only encourage us all, pay attention to how your body responds to foods. Again, changing your entire approach to eating is not always an easy, comfortable experience for everybody. You're combating your attachment, your addictions, and things like that. You're also overcoming your chemical addiction to certain foods. It's very real that, you know, you've heard me talk about the fact that foods are designed for you to be addicted to it. And so when you get off of it, it's not just it's not just emotional in terms of, oh, I want certain things. It's a chemical addiction. And when you think about it that way, then there's a lot of empathy that you offer to persons that you're guiding in terms of assisting them changing their eating ways, because it is an addiction. And so for that reason, it's not always easy for everybody. So be gentle with yourself. Again, if you don't want to go 100% raw, I would suggest to you one way that you can jumpstart everything. Number one, change your breakfast. Break your fast with something that's generating life, that's going to be helpful to your body to detox in some way. We cannot detox on egg, bacon, and muffins and that kind of thing. We just, yeah, that first window, that first 3 to 4 hours that you're up, your body is in its elimination stage, and eating things like that will not be of assistance to us. So that greasy food that we have been accustomed to, it's time to shift and shake out of that. So if you can change your breakfast to something more raw, your fruits, your smoothies, your herbs, your herbal teas and things like that, you will notice a difference. And then with your dinner, let's make a change to your dinner. Let's do half of your plate as raw food, and then the other half can be the other things that you desire. But working constantly to improving the situation in terms of the options that you're going to have on the other side. Okay. Um, Let me see if I missed anything. Y'all direct messaging me. Um, okay, so yes, I can only encourage. Us to, be mindful, select foods that are going to be helpful to you. Your body knows what to do with raw foods, people. That's the beautiful thing about nature. Just switching the foods that you select will cause your body to know how to eliminate freely. It's not going to be stuck and constipated. This starting your day with foods that are going to be creating a glue in the body is just not where it's at in 2022. It's just not where it's at in terms of information that we have access to now. So we just have to do better where that is concerned. Let me see. I try to drink water between meals. Since the change in lifestyle, my face is very smooth and clean. Yeah, that's it, Samantha. That's it. That you definitely notice an improvement in your skin for sure, for sure. My blood pressure seems very controlled. Yes, blessings, blessings, blessings. I'm so happy to hear that, Queen. You have no idea. I tell people the plant power detox. Yes, it's 14-day challenge, but I don't do it for. I'm sorry, my nephews just came, so I'm sure you're gonna hear. They're downstairs and they don't know what I'm doing, so expect anything. But thank you so much for trusting the 14-day challenge, Samantha. And you know, a lot of people do it for weight loss. My thing is exactly for that, for the improvement in the hypertension issues, the diabetic, the uncontrolled sugar levels, and things like that. Those are the things that really light my fire in terms of certain things, because I know that's where we struggle most as a people. And of course, with the extra glow of the melanin, ain't nothing ever wrong with that. So I'm very grateful to hear that. And that's something that's across the board. I do want to touch on really quickly where I guess I'm always going to be a fan of roots and things like that, the herbs, because of their medicinal benefits. And so that's where I will kind of segue from the raw lifestyle, because roots are supposed to be boiled in order to extract. Yes, there are different methods that you can extract the chemical components from them, but the teas, in terms of your root teas, I am going to be a fan of those root teas, and those are boiled in order to get the potency out. Okay, let me see this question. Tomorrow say, can I do ginger and turmeric juices to replace the green juices to avoid losing weight? Queen, yes, you can. The green juice that I'm recommending, however, is the use of the standing spinach or callaloo instead of your. You should be fine doing that. You should be fine doing that. What I would recommend for you, however, make sure you're using your coconut milks. Try to get your calories in the most helpful way, and so that would be your coconut milk and your smoothies and things like that. And of course, again, no limitation. If you see avocados on the street, please grab them. You can do your guacamoles and put on top of your salad. You can slice them up, adding that extra calorie to it, so that I get what you mean, Tamara. Where can I get alkaline water? And what do you think of using it? Alkaline water is actually very, very common now. I've seen it in the gas station marts. I've seen it nearly everywhere now. What is it called? Skydrate. That's the local brand that offers the alkaline water, and they're very popular. So it's almost every supermarket right next to the waters. You'll see those as options. You love having avocado smoothie, yes. For you, definitely load up on your avocados. Try to get your coconut, the dried ones, and also the flesh of the soft ones, and incorporate that in everything that you do tomorrow. What do I think about the alkaline water? Am I gonna be honest tonight? um Now, from my experience, I have to say that you do notice a difference using alkaline water. It's something that's it's going to be something that causes you to eliminate. And so that's definitely a plus. Do I think it's an absolute necessity? If I'm to be very honest, I have to say no, I don't. I think the addition of different herbs, different fruits like lemon and stuff to your water can effectively do the same job. However, it's not like I'm knocking the alkaline water that's here. I would actually encourage it. For some persons, when they're spending more or they're doing something different apart from your regular water, they tend to be more consistent with it. And like I said, there is some benefit to be had from using your alkaline water. So don't go and say I'm knocking it, but I'm just somebody, I've done it consistently in the past. It's something I was a huge, huge fan of. But as you go along and you start to tweak different things and you listen to your body, sometimes it kind of tells you that you can utilize different methods and get the same result. But yeah, the sky grade definitely it's in most of the supermarkets that I've seen water in. Okay. Any other questions? Tamara, yes, load up. Use your coconut milk as much as possible. Use your coconut meat. Use your avocado. Remember, your intention is different in terms of not causing weight loss. And so, 5 days raw foods. That's the good raw life. We're starting tomorrow. Last time around, I was blown away, truly, truly blown away at the weight loss. 9 pounds, two persons tied for first place with 9 pounds in the 5 days. And then we had two persons with 8 pounds. And then we had a whole slew of people at 7 pounds. So if it is that you're looking for a shift where your number on the scale is concerned, consider doing raw foods for 1 week and see what your body tells you, see how it works for you. I know for me, again, it's like your chi or your life force just awakens in a very new way, so you feel better. And that's what I'm all about. How do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? And sometimes we have to feel better in order to recognize that where we were before wasn't an ideal place. So, powers and blessings, everybody. If there are no other questions, I think I'm going to wrap up today. Next week is going to be a fire episode. I'm just saying, I'm plugging hard for myself. Next week is Queen Things. Queen Things. We're going to be talking to 4 other queens and we're going to be sharing information that is going to be vital for the divine feminine. And I highly encourage everybody to jump onto that call. Of course, when we have other persons on board, it's great to get other perspectives, to get other tips, to get other ideas and that kind of thing. And so that's what we'll be doing next week. All right. So if there are no other questions, I just want to, what's your view on, let me see. Ooh, keto diet. What's your view on the keto diet? Let me see how to answer this as honest as I can. Has it been very helpful to a lot of people? Absolutely. And in fact, I would even go further to say everything, as long as you make a major adjustment in what you're accustomed to eating, you're going to see a shift in the body. I am, however, a huger fan of a plant-based lifestyle. Not because I want everybody to be vegan, but my argument or my issue is not against meat. It's not against anything else but the unnecessary toxic chemicals that we expose ourselves to. And you'll just notice that over time, as you eliminate more of these chemicals, you will just gradually graduate to more of a plant-based lifestyle. So that's the one that I'm the hugest fan of. I've seen persons reap major benefits from doing the keto diet. Long term, however, there's some practices that I'm not huge on, but to each his own. We all have to listen to our bodies. We have that divine intuition, and it's there for a reason. And so for some persons, keto diet will work, and that's perfectly fine. You know, my thing again is not against meat. It's not against this, not against that. It's simply the elimination of unnecessary toxins from our bodies. Okay? Peace, Queen, Emperor, Empress. Thank you so much for your question. Um, Nothing else? I think that's it. If we got nothing else, let me see. Um, Oh yeah, thanks for plugging. Yeah, I have videos on YouTube for those who are joining for the first time. I try to save the lives on YouTube, so if you want conversation about, I think parasites should be up, becoming unstuck, obesity. That was a really powerful conversation, and I encourage all of us, if we know that there are persons in our circle suffering from obesity, please share those videos with them. I think they are of much assistance as long as the person is open. And so, yeah, please support the YouTube channel if you have a YouTube account or Gmail, however it goes. Please like. Is it like? Y'all know this is me, doing the work in terms of advocating for followers on YouTube and that type of thing. I'm very reclusive by nature, but I encourage you to follow there, because what I've noticed, like, share, and subscribe. That's exactly right. Like, share, and subscribe. That's the Wellness Queens on YouTube. On Facebook, it's the Wellness Queens 268. The Wellness Queens 268 on Instagram as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your light energy. Um, I don't see any other questions. With that being said, again, know that nature knew exactly what was being done when foods were created for us. Okay? It's as much as we have tampered and tampered, we have not created anything better than the original. And we have definitely done a disservice to ourselves as we have, you know, tried to play God with food and that type of thing. So my encouragement is for everybody to go back to that divine place within you, so that you can recognize your divine connection to the foods that were created for us. Um, yeah, raw foods, high frequency foods for high frequency people, live foods for live people. There's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with cooking foods. I cook food as well. However, I think this drizzle of salad that we do on a whole plate of dead food is something that we need to shift out of. All right, so with that being said, I think that's all we have for tonight. Again, Queen Things coming up next Sunday. Queen Things, Queen Things, Queen Things. Y'all don't want to miss that one. That's going to be a powerful conversation. Peace and blessings. Peace, love, and wellness to everybody. Good night, good night, good night. Peace. Zoomers.